I'm doing a giveaway for PAX bundles. Stick around till the end of the video to find out how you can win. What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with your afternoon snap, and I'm doing a small rewrite of this video because initially I was going to put this out before the weekend missions came out for Clea. I was trying to figure out what to play, so I looked at a bunch of decks on Untapped to come up with some crazy ideas involving Clea, because I think there are a lot of cool things that this card can do, and we are going to get into all of them throughout this video. I take a look at over 10 different deck lists, probably over 15 different deck lists, but 10 different solid ideas that I think could all work with Clea. And then after that, I put it all together and made a Clea deck myself, and I happen to go undefeated with that Clea deck, clearing out my weekend missions and then maybe even playing it a little bit more. My games will be at the end of the video, but first we're just going to take a look through a bunch of different cool ideas with this cool new card. I was just doing this myself, and as I was sort of reacting to all of the crazy things that I was seeing, I was like, okay, this could make just a fun video, just me looking at these decks and talking about them a little bit, what makes some of them interesting and not interesting here, and we're just going to go through it. I know the Clea weekend missions are about to be out when I put out this video. I recorded this a few days ago, so this could provide some interesting ideas for how to get your wins for the Clea weekend missions. And this is like point one, I think, point one, this is the starting position for Clea, I think, and it's a great place to start off this video with, but we are definitely going to get wackier. One thing that I did want to draw attention to is Marvel Boy, which I think is probably the best card at consistently pumping up Clea. It's not going to have the same high roll or out of nowhere grab a bunch of flames of the Faultine as Kahori does, but I think that, well, I mean, this deck is just playing both of them, right? So it seems like this deck is pretty all in on Clea, though there are some other more all-in on Clea decks, believe it or not, that we are going to get to. This is definitely a good jumping off point. We've got Zabu Surge with Shang-Chi, Gwenpool, Kahori as the 4-cost package. Now, moving along, we have this deck, which already pivots into a little bit sillier of some stuff. We've got still the Marvel Boy, just really with Clea. It's not going to be as great with the Hood, obviously. It'll be fine with the Demon, though you can also use it on Hawkeye Kate Bishop's arrows, and lots of ways to take advantage of Werewolf by Night in this deck. Also, Flames of the Faultine is pumping up that Werewolf by Night and making it move every single time, so that is cool. And then the Sentry and Annihilus that's kind of like a package that we've seen a little bit with Merlin and Werewolf by Night, because Merlin can be used to transform the Sentry, or transform the Void. So it's just like a cool combo of things to play anyways, and you want to play the Hood alongside Merlin and all of these cards. Seems cool. The main new addition here, other than the Sentry and Annihilus, which feels like we've seen the rest of this deck without Clea and without Sasquatch, but Sasquatch is a pretty cool card to add in with Clea, because if you have a bunch of flames that you can dump on turn 5, imagine you dump 3 flames and a Merlin spell or something, and then the Demon, then you get to play a 1-cost Sasquatch on the final turn, and that just seems really fun to me as a huge Sasquatch enjoyer. Definitely not something that I personally thought of. I will get to something that I personally thought of probably towards the end of this video, because I can't imagine too many other people are doing some of the things that I've been doing with Clea, but I'm curious. Maybe we'll see. I've not looked at all of this. Like I said, I was looking through this briefly, saw Sasquatch, saw 2 other things, and then I was like, okay, this is crazy. There's so many different things that people are trying with Clea. It seems like a really cool card, and it might be a card, especially if you can play it alongside Sasquatch, it might be a card that I have to put a little bit more time into. Now, this is just one of the thing. We're not totally there yet. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. This is the Black Swan deck list. Okay, we're totally there. This is crazy what this person was doing with Clea. So this person is not okay. There's some things missing from this deck too, but there's so many things that you can do with this card. So Moon Girl, to give you additional copies of your Flames of the Faltine, which I haven't shown off in this video, but it's a 1-cost on reveal skill that says give an enemy card here -3 power. It afflicts an enemy card there with -3 power. So you can put a bunch of those in your hand with Moon Girl and then play them in your Joaquin Torres location. That seems overkill, but the thing that does not seem overkill that actually seems pretty cool to me is Black Swan giving you free Flames of the Faltine, and you can play Flames of the Faltine into Hope Summers, and then they're basically free because you get the energy back on the following turn and you don't even waste any of the space at the Hope Summers location. So a lot of ways really to just get additional value out of the Flames of the Faltine. This deck is a little bit light on ways to pump up Clea. With just Marvel Boy and Gwenpool, I don't know if you're going to grab that many Flames, but this does still seem like a cool angle to pursue. And in addition to Black Swan giving you those free Flames and Hope Summers giving you those free Flames, this deck plays Hitmonkey instead of Sasquatch, which could also be a cool combo for cheating out a big card. And then we just have like Sunspot She-Hulk that's in there because of the extra energy generation and a potential combo with Moon Girl to give you some other interesting things to do, maybe Black Swan. There's some interesting things going on in that deck. Nonetheless, this deck looks pretty similar to the first one that we saw. Gwenpool is a good card with Clea, and Gwenpool is a good card with Mysterio. And Mysterio and Clea are also kind of both good with Sasquatch. So this could be a new little foursome block that we see. Not totally sure on that, but it is potentially worth exploring, especially for Sasquatch enjoyers. Anything new here? Yeah, Nicholas Scratch joins it. So this is not a card that we have seen in any of the previous versions of the deck, but when Nicholas Scratch was coming out at the start of the season, I did look at Clea and say, okay, well, that is the way. Like, if Nicholas Scratch is getting only +1 for one particular reason, then it's definitely for Clea, because this is like not a card that scales up that much. But if we take a look at it in something like this deck that maybe isn't so, I think we'd have to retool this deck a little bit still. We want to get Kahori in here. We don't really need Rocket Raccoon, Wasp, and Joaquin Torres. I guess the Wasp is good with the Moon Girl, She-Hulk, and Hitmonkey of it all. So that's interesting. But Joaquin Torres, Rocket Raccoon is really not doing that much. And the Joaquin Torres with the Flames of the Faltine is like fine. But I don't think that it's something that you need to be playing for, because Flames of the Faltine is already a fine rate. It's a 1/3. So if you were to spend all of your energy on Flames of the Faltine, then, and how many flames are you even making with this deck? But I do think that trying to squeeze Nicholas Scratch into a lot of these decks could be a really interesting angle, and at the very least, that's not something that I have talked about here yet. Might have to get through a few decks to start seeing some other stuff, but the Black Swan is really what got my gears going a little bit. So let's see if we can find anything else that really gets my gears going. The other deck, and I've just sorted by win rate, and I have not made a like threshold. So everything will say low game volume on it, but I do think that there could still be some cool stuff. So this deck does have some additional ways to, I don't know what I was going to say with that sentence. I actually don't know how Bast works with Clea, to be totally honest. Bast works fine with Mysterio. All of the Mysterio and clones just have 3 power. We have Marvel Boy, Clea, Nico, and that's really it as far as pumps. But this seems like it could still be a reasonable deck. All right, what else do we got? Last year, Kahori. So this is basically the day one auto deck, as far as I can tell. except with Joaquin Torres added in, I think. And I'm not sure what else was removed off the top of my head, but the rest of these things look familiar to me. Basically, if you're looking to pump Clea, you're going to be playing a bunch of cards that pump cards like Gwenpool, Galacta, and Kahori, so you might as well play a bunch, potentially Forge, you might as well play a bunch of things that could also benefit off getting buffs, like Brood, Sebastian Shaw, and Lasher. And then once you're doing that, it does make some sense to just include some other good pump abilities like Captain America Chavez and Surge. Again, we see the Joaquin Torres Falcon, but this is a pretty reasonable deck. I think I did showcase this in a video and basically just said that people were, maybe I didn't, because I cut out a lot of my games where people just retreat to me because, like, what are you really getting out of that content? But I had a lot of games where, like, Clea just was like a non-factor. Oh, I did. Yeah. Clea was like a non-factor, or I didn't draw it, or it got discarded to Sokovia, and then I just won with all of the other stuff in the deck, which I do think is, like, reasonable. You don't have to fully commit to a card and need to draw it every game to, like, and build some crazy combo deck to have a card just be fine. And Clea could just be fine in a deck like this, a sort of surferless surfer that aims to play a lot more varied threats like Lasher, and you could even play something like a Black Panther in a deck like this with a few of the cards, Galacta, Gwenpool, Surge, America Chavez, if you want to go really over the top. Absorbing Man could also be an interesting card in a deck like this, so still a lot of room. This next deck is not similar. Oh gosh, this is going to take me a second to unpack. So what are our pumps? We've got Gwenpool, we've got Nico, we've got Nakia. Nakia is the other one in here. And then we have Misery to re-trigger all of those pumps. And then for pump targets, alongside Clea, we have Mr. Sinister, Sebastian Shaw. Interesting. Well, we are in the below 50% win rate now, so we are probably going to start to see some more interesting decisions and card choices. About that though, like, I might also widen my parameters. I am just looking at the top 10% of Infinite, which I figured was going to get me like the most competitive, like, best takes on things. But if we're just looking for like wild things, I might expand those parameters just to see what other people are working with. Here is an inclusion of Absorbing Man in that Zabu Surge shell as well. One, I just like it because you're playing Brood, and to be able to go Brood into Absorbing Man, I feel like is just like something that everybody forgot about, but is an insane way to just put 15 power onto the board on turn 4. And yeah, like, seems good to be doing. So that is still, I think, an unexplored or underexplored angle. Another Marvel Boy. Yes, okay, this is one of the things that I was waiting for, because I think a really powerful way to pump up Clea is a turn 2 Misty Knight from High Evolutionary. And this deck gets to play that, and that's really all that it's playing in terms of, like, well, okay, I'm trying not to spoil the Abomination part, because Abomination is also really good with the High Evolutionary. I can't spoil it, it's already on the screen here, but I think that these are both interesting things to consider about Clea in a High Evolutionary deck. I think that Cyclops could find its way into a deck like this too, just because you are already having unspent energy with Misty Knight, that you might want to just go for this anyways. I did play a game against Binks where I had like a wild High Evolutionary looking deck that was a lot of fun with Clea, and the Abomination does have some synergy because you use Flames of the Faltine that you get from Misty Knight, and then you can grab a cheap Abomination and potentially cheaper 2 with Cyclops. So all of this actually does seem to come together in a pretty interesting way, and I also like that both Clea and Misty Knight being 1-drops. Misty Knight is like one of the few 1-drops alongside Nico that can pump up a Clea, and then you can start pumping up both of them with Marvel Boy. And I think that all of that is just good at generating a bunch of Flames of the Faltine. So I kind of tried something like with this shell, Clea, Misty Knight, Marvel Boy, High Evolutionary, and then also the Black Swan on top of that, just to see like how much you could go into that and build around it. I think that there are definitely some fun angles on the table left to be explored, and one other fun angle on the table that I previously explored in a YouTube short that I've put out. I definitely put this out, but is Devil Dinosaur, because Clea is not just giving you a card that you can play, it's also adding a card to your hand, so it does pump up the collector and Devil Dinosaur, even if you don't use Flames of the Faltine, which is important because when people are trying to win with Clea, there's going to be some people playing Luke Cage. Sometimes I call him Nick Cage. Luke Cage, we're buddies. He lets me call him Nick. But Luke Cage obviously just shuts down anything that Clea is trying to do, unless you just totally pivot and do something off the beaten path, which is keep those Flames of the Faltine in your hand so that you can pump up Clea or Devil Dinosaur and the Collector. That is certainly an interesting angle that you can do with it. Here's an Astral Projection deck with Kahori and Gwenpool. I will say, because I'm not sure that we're going to find anyone else doing the wild stuff that I was doing with Kahori that I think is better than Astral Projection, which is using Grandmaster to re-trigger Kahori. And I do believe, here's another more all-in on High Evolutionary with Magic and Bruce Banner. This is a little closer actually to what I was playing. Also Ajax in here to take advantage, and then Kyera because we really want to protect Clea and Sunspot, and potentially the Bruce Bannered Hulk. You're going to have multiple turns to try to activate that with a 7th turn in the game. This seems pretty reasonable. There is something that I don't love about it, which is that you can't play Hazmat and Ajax on turn 7 anymore. It's just kind of a bummer that you can't, but yeah, I mean, I understand the Hazmat nerf regardless. One thing that I do like about Magic specifically in Clea decks is if you are not playing Black Swan, or even if you are, that Clea does kind of command more energy for you to spend if you want to make use of all of those Flames of the Faltine. If you're not just using them to pump up a Devil Dinosaur, having the extra energy from a 7th turn is like ideally better for you than it is your opponent, because most decks just have a 6-turn game plan in mind. Now there are decks that are going to be able to take advantage of the 7th turn as well, and especially decks playing Merlin can just turn it off, or potentially some decks playing Thanos if people are still rocking with that card. If people can turn off Limbo, it's obviously not something you want to be playing into too hard, but I do think that it is still an angle potentially worth exploring for Clea, just because 7 extra energy to play out all of those flames does seem good. And I think that's probably most of what I thought was interesting about Clea, and with these High Evolutionary decks coming in towards the end, showing off those interactions, I think we can probably call it there. Oh wait, I think I got distracted. I don't think I said what I was doing with Kahori, which was re-triggering it with Grandmaster. Apologies if I literally just said this and I forgot, but one thing that I think is a really cool interaction is you use Kahori to pump up your Clea, which adds cards to your hand, and then because you have additional cards in your hand, Kahori is going to be able to throw out even more pumps, and there's an even higher chance that you will be able to continually pump up that Clea and grab even more Flames of the Faltine. So all of that seems really cool, and if you can potentially go like turn 1 Clea, I think the ideal curve would be Clea, Black Swan, Marvel Boy, start pumping it up, or Clea, Misty Knight, Black Swan, skipping a leaving the unspent energy on both turns 2 and 3. Turn 2, you are guaranteed to get a Flames. Turn 3, you are 50-50 to get a Flames, but it puts a Black Swan in play, which is an important thing to have. And then you go turn 4 Kahori, turn 5, maybe like, I mean, I don't know everything that we're doing here, but you could Grandmaster the Kahori. I said that, right? Hopefully I said that and didn't just talk past it and then throw it in here at the last second as if I had already said it. But using Grandmaster to re-trigger Kahori, this deck has Prodigy to re-trigger Kahori. I think that's like the main thing it is trying to do here. It just seems really cool to me because then your second Kahori trigger is even bigger, ideally because you've added some flames to your hand, and then dump all of those flames with a Black Swan on the final turn. So this deck seems like it's got some cool things going on. Hitmonkey, Black Swan, Kahori. Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of pieces, and I think what's cool about these Clea decks is there's like 20 cards that I want to play. If I could make like a 20 card deck or a 30 card deck, maybe when some other game modes come out and like you get to pick a commander or something, then I would have a lot of fun just throwing in 30 cards that all work with Clea and just seeing what happens. And what do we have here? I had to stop because I see Ironheart. And also Serra. So this deck does have the Grandmaster Kahori, so I like that, but it doesn't have, and then yeah, Merlin with Ironheart is actually just a solid combo. Oh, Ironheart pumps up Clea. Oh, how did that not come to me as I've been playing with Ironheart for the past few days? Just totally missed that. I was playing with Ironheart when Clea came out and just slipped my mind. That's fine. This deck also playing Serra. That does not seem to do anything. So that's strange. But Grandmaster Ironheart, that seems cool. If we could fit the Black Swan stuff in here, Bishop gets pumped up whenever you play a card. So Bishop, like Hitmonkey, there's no Hitmonkey in this deck, but Bishop, like Hitmonkey, does work with a bunch of Flames of the Faltine. So all of that seems cool. I mean, this deck can go Luna Snow and then play a Serra on turn 4. Not exactly sure what it's going for other than that, but I like that people are experimenting and trying some different things. Here's a different Affliction take, though the only card that pumps up Clea here is Marvel Boy, so it's kind of like a 2-card combo to get some flames and then throw in a Joaquin Torres, and it's not even an Ajax deck. All right, we can move along here. What else do we have? Yeah, a little bit more of the same. I think that we basically already saw this deck and talked about it. Professor X. Well, okay. Here's something that is actually quite interesting. So Professor X now only stops people from playing characters to that location. You can freely play skills to a Professor X location, which means even if you lose Professor X, you can throw in some flames there on the final turn, which I think is pretty neat, and Professor X can also protect your Clea. So honestly, that seems pretty cool across the board. And yeah, I like it. All right, let's keep scrolling. We're gonna find some cool cards, right? I feel like that's probably the last cool thing that we will find. Diamondback, have not seen Diamondback, but that feels similar to me to Joaquin Torres. It's like win more in that one location in a way that you probably don't really need to mess with. Seeing a lot of this Zoo as well, just because Marvel Boy is really good with Clea, so let's play Marvel Boy, and then let's just play a bunch of other cards that will make it a good Marvel Boy deck, right? This deck does have a little bit of an issue with Flames of the Faltine because you're going to fill up locations. The one thing that you could do that's kind of cheeky is like play a Squirrel Girl and then play a Flames of the Faltine in the same turn, so that way the Squirrel Girl flips up, cannot fill your location, cannot add a squirrel because flames is still there, and then you reveal the flames and it removes itself, so that still gives you access to that location on the final turn. But on that final turn, you are probably going to want to not play a bunch of flames, so that way you can just have the biggest dazzler possible. But this deck also can do a reasonable job of just like playing Squirrel Girl and Shauna on the final turn to all of the sudden fill a bunch of locations. Now that winds up not being as good with like having a huge Gilgamesh or playing a free Mockingbird. But I think at the very least, like considering that Marvel Boy Clea is just something fun to do, throwing that in a shell where Marvel Boy is already good is a totally fine angle, really. Or maybe these people accidentally queued up and they meant to queue for Sanctum Showdown. Who knows? This is another one with Grandmaster and Black Swan added in here. What is Beast doing exactly? I guess it bounces the Hood and potentially Hitmonkey. Potentially Grandmaster. We've got Gwenpool, Mysterio. Mysterio also good with Hitmonkey. This could use a Merlin potentially too, especially with Scratch and Mysterio. But overall, a totally reasonable deck. Squirrel Girl, Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock is interesting with Clea because you could really, really battle for that Clea location. And then we've got some more fairly straightforward stuff. Okay, wait a minute. We found the finishing card here. Galactus with the Affliction from Clea is a really fun angle. This is also a magic trick deck because you can do things like make it look like a location is totally filled up and then use the Merlin spell, I think it's called like Once in Future, to get rid of a card, change that card into extra energy, and then use that extra energy to set up for a big Galactus on the final turn. And in this deck, a big Galactus is activate Black Swan. Wait, okay, hear me out. So you have, let's say you have 2 or 4 extra energy on the final turn with either a Once in Future or a Black Swan activation plus a Once in Future. You go Joaquin Torres, you double Flames of the Faultine to give your opponent minus 12 power in that location. Oh no, you can't. Sorry, you can only play Joaquin Torres plus 1 Flames of the Faultine for minus 6, and then you do have to Once in Future the Joaquin Torres to get it out of there, so that way you can drop a Galactus in that location. But there's a lot of other cool stuff going on in this deck. I will also say this is a on-reveal heavy Astral Projection deck. Yellow Jacket with the on-reveal, and then Gwenpool and Nakia both to pump up Clea. And I do have to wonder if, okay, so Gwenpool and Nakia also have bonus synergy because they pump up Galactus. That is pretty cool. Maybe I will have to try something like this. This is neat. And then, yeah, you want to give your opponent a Green Goblin at the location that you're going for and try to give them as much afflicted power as you possibly can, so that way Galactus can take it over. And you know what? I think I'm going to stop the video there. I don't think we are getting any cooler than that. And hopefully this showed that there is still a lot of room to do some cool stuff with Clea. I'm sure we'll see some more fun stuff this weekend. I did keep scrolling just for a little bit. I'll see if I find anything else, but merging with Clea should give it additional power with Agony, Hulkbuster, and the Spider from Penny Parker. I don't believe that merging with Symbiote Spider-Man, though, will give you a Flames of the Faultine, because I think it will be considered Symbiote Spider-Man gaining the additional power and the text. So I don't think that will count as Clea permanently gaining power. If you merge with Symbiote Spider and then you merge with a Hulkbuster or something, that would work. But I think that Symbiote Spider-Man just by itself doesn't work. So what are you trying to do exactly by putting all of this power onto Clea, like through these cards? Well, I guess you're just trying to get a bunch of Flames of the Faultine, so it's not that much different from other plans. I don't know about Penny Parker specifically, though. She is versatile, potentially, but I do think that Agony could work, because for just 1 energy, you get the Flames of the Faultine. And that could just be a good enough rate that it's fine. Like, you're basically trading 1 energy for 2 power and then 1 more energy for another 2 power, and you could potentially cheat this out with like a black Swan or something. I would be curious, like if you're going to play all of these Agony Clea and Hulkbuster, if there was some way to capitalize on like having a really big Clea, maybe through like some type of Frigga strategy where you use that to just be an additional combo that the deck has access to. Not totally sure, but that was one thing that I didn't see in the previous run through. Ah yes, one other angle that you could take with Clea, and again, I already showed this off in a YouTube short previously, but you can use those Flames of the Faltine and discard them with Bullseye, which doesn't really give you any additional value. You actually lose value on that because you only afflict an opponent's card with -2 power as opposed to -3. The upside is, well, you can hit filled locations, but also the upside is that you don't have to spend any additional energy, and you can kind of just do your curve in a different way where you play the Bullseye on turn 3, and then you can even pump up Clea on the final turn of the game. That's not going to happen with this deck mostly. You can use Scorn to pump up Clea, and I've actually done that. Turn 1 Clea, turn 2 Blade, discard Scorn, pump up Clea. But yeah, for the most part, this deck is really just looking to pump her up with Marvel Boy, and then plays a few other 1-cost cards. I don't think that this is like really as good as the traditional Dakin discard lists, but it's fine. Something interesting. One other card that I don't think I really drew attention to in the first go-round was Toxidoxy, which has the downside you cannot play those cards next turn, but I don't think that's a big deal in a deck like this because you want to play Toxidoxy on turn 2, of course, and then probably want to play Nakia on turn 3 and Gwenpool on turn 4. Like, you're not necessarily looking to play most of those cards. Of course, if Toxidoxy hits your Nakia, that's where things get awkward, I suppose. But if it hits the cards that you want it to hit, then that's great because you don't need to play them on the following turn anyways. One thing that I did want to bring up specifically about decks that looked like this, and now you're trying to throw Clea into them. And these kind of look like Silver Surfer decks too. So the curve of Silver Surfer decks is actually fairly high even in comparison to a deck like this. But regardless, just wanted to say, you can't just cut a 1-cost card from your deck and then throw Clea into it, because if you're not using all of those Flames of the Faltine, then you're really not getting that great of use out of this card. And like, a deck like this kind of just wants to play Brood Sebastian Shaw on the final turn, and that doesn't really leave room for all of these Clea synergies. Now, I do think that a deck like this is pretty strong without Clea, and then Clea is really just like the backup plan to your Sebastian Shaw or Brood draws. All of that could be totally fine, but I do think that you do want to consider the curve of a potential deck when you put Clea in it. Now, you could just do something like Sebastian Shaw or Brood, and then Clea plus double Flames on the final turn. That could be totally reasonable. I think that there's probably some allowance for that. You'll want to throw your Galacta buff on either Seabass or Brood, not the Clea, since you can't really make use of it. Honestly, yeah, I think these decks are fine. I think that this is like mostly what people are going to be playing this weekend. But I do hope that people also take some time to consider some of these other wacky ideas that I've presented in this video, because there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with this card. I also wanted to share my Clea deck, which I am currently undefeated with. I have won 7 games with this, completing the weekend missions. Also, I thought I was going to put this video out before the weekend missions went live, but with 4th of July, I got a little bit confused. But anyways, here is what I have been rocking with. I don't think that it's perfect, but it has been a lot of fun. Bishop is one card that I was looking to add to the deck, so Thank you to my opponent for allowing us to play with it here. One thing that I don't think I talked about during the rest of this video is that Merlin is pretty good with Kahori in terms of just adding additional cards to your hand and allowing you to have larger Kahori triggers. Grandmaster Kahori, that's just something I want to be doing. That seems sweet to me. And Hope Summers in the Mojo world always seems right too. So we're going to go with this. We are going to fill up our hand here, which will mean we have a full Kahori. I guess we kind of want to get this bishop into play soon as well, but I also want to find a Black Swan. Had to play that one, and I want to find Clea, of course. This game doesn't seem like it's going to be doing everything that I want it to do. But I'm curious what I can come up with here. I mean, Kahori, it's just a lot of points. I could still probably find the time to Grandmaster Kahori next turn. What if we do this? How does that look? Gives me 6 energy next turn to Kahori Grandmaster. And gets a card out of my hand so that I get to draw a card next turn. If I draw a Black Swan, it's too little too late. You have to activate cards by turn 4. Omniversal Presence took away my Grandmaster, gave me an Invisible Woman. That's not the best, and it also just looks like my opponent is playing a tech deck. They snapped because of Gwenpool, though. Okay. So, I mean, what are we polymorphing here? We could polymorph Scratch. We could play the Bishop as well. We could once and future the Scratch. Still feel like that means that I kind of want to polymorph, so that way Werewolf by Night is not stuck in Mojo World, though. So I could polymorph the Bishop or the Merlin. I feel like I should polymorph the Merlin. But then I don't have that many spells. Could I hit monkey this turn and dump my hand a little bit? I think I actually could do that. But then, yeah, a lot of these things aren't really coming together super ideally. So I guess it's this for now. This is slightly better because it gives me more Hope Summers energy. This is a tough deck to play, for sure. And I also could have polymorphed the Scratch. That could have potentially been better. But this play gives me a ton of energy on the final turn to potentially play Bishop, hit monkey, and this other stuff. So, honestly, this still seems pretty fun. They're going to Grandmaster the Gwenpool. Yeah, that also seems pretty good. Alright, let's see what they can come up with that. And they Grandmaster Surge. Okay, they're playing a Grandmaster of their own, which is cool. And it does seem like a Clea deck, based off everything else we've seen. I've got 10 energy here. We're going to polymorph a rock. Awkwardly, it's not great to do that in Mojo World, though. I'll probably polymorph a Kahori too. Alright, let's start with Bishop. Hit monkey. Do I want to polymorph a rock or do I want to just polymorph a Kahori? I haven't figured out what I'm doing with these polymorphs. I guess I'm just polymorphing Kahori twice. Let's play Bishop first. Let's polymorph Kahori, move Werewolf here, then polymorph Kahori again, and then just... Oh. I didn't realize I ran out of energy. I guess I'm only polymorphing Kahori once then. Alright. that solves it. This battles for every location, doesn't commit too much points to Mojo World, and commits the most points over into the Peak, but still a decent amount of points over in Hitmonkey, and does battle for Mojo World actually pretty consistently. My opponent also playing with Hitmonkey. Will we go 8-0 with this deck? It looks like we will. This has been a pretty strong deck for me. Unfortunately, did not get to show off Clea in this small segment, but did get to show off a bunch of other fun stuff. Oh, I polymorphed the werewolf because that got shrunk by the Shadow King, but still going to grab a cosmic victory. And with that, I will also be able to claim my weekend mission rewards for winning 8 games with Merlin starting in my deck. Should I play one more game and just try to get a cool Clea combo going? I think that I should. This does risk losing my 8-game streak with this deck, but let's see if we can make some cool Clea combos come to fruition. Muir Island is insane with Clea. Enough that we are just snapping. Nico with the draw 2 cards mode is pretty fantastic. We'll just Grandmaster over here. And so one thing that is a little bit regrettable right now, we could also throw away Merlin. We're going to have enough cards in our hand. Maybe we don't need these Merlin spells, actually. And that way we can save Grandmaster Kahori for some huge points on the final turn. We could also toss Scratch. It's not the worst thing in the world. So this draws 2 cards, plus the draw for turn. We could take Merlin back and just continue to have access to that. The other thing that we could do here that is a little bit wacky is we could Grandmaster the Nico. This draws me 4 cards from Nico, and then I don't draw a card for the turn, but I'm very likely to hit the Clea here. So this seems neat. Oh, they counter it! They counter the Grandmaster movement, which means I do not re-trigger Nico, do not grab any additional draws here, and I also do not destroy the next card that I play. Starlight Citadel, gonna move something around potentially. I'll need to play Black Swan next turn. Fortunately, no Clea is a bit of a bummer. I could play Black Swan this turn as well, go Black Swan Scratch. And it makes sense to play 1s into Cloning Vats. Cloning Vats actually pretty good with Kahori too. I could just slam Kahoris for the rest of this game and probably feel reasonable about that. Sure, we got the bug where we lose the in-game music. I don't know why that keeps happening. Negasonic's going to be a little bit annoying to battle through, but at the very least we can keep scratching away at that. Play the Hood into it this turn. Just assuming that they're going to play it into Cloning Vats. Honestly, this doesn't seem that bad of a play. And then what do? I play like this. This adds a Hood and a Demon. Am I going to want another Hood? I'm not sure, but putting a bunch of 1-cost cards in my hand for Black Swan seems like it's probably still fine. We are going to pump this location a little bit. All right. So one other cool thing is that Black Swan makes Merlin spells cost 0. I don't think I mentioned that in the main video either. Was going to mention it in this segment. Didn't come up in the first game, but this game we did draw Black Swan, so we will get to see that in action. We are going to fill up our hand here with the Merlin spell. I think I miscalculated that. That's why I was not going to play Nick Scratch here at first glance. They do still have priority for Negasonic, so it's something that I do just want to keep in mind across the board. If we're going to play the Hood, we probably want to play it now. If we're going to play Once in Future, we probably want to play it now. What if we just go Once in Future Kahori? Do I ever want to play Kahori here? I redraw the Kahori. I redraw the Merlin spell. I mean, I would like to hit Hitmonkey for the final turn, so I think I don't play Kahori here. I just play it here, so that way I can find Hitmonkey. Final turn, I can play Hitmonkey, and then one of these two. I guess Marvel Boy. And then these two, yeah, the Black Swan energy isn't even being super useful here, because I'm going to have 2 energy that I don't even wind up spending. Okay, sure, they take out my Black Swan. I don't need it. And we are going to get rid of our hood. So now we'll be able to finish off the game with Demon, Scratch, Marvel Boy, or Hope Summers. Both are 4 power. And then a Hit Monkey. We're going to need that monkey, though. Oh, Omniversal Presence we won't be able to play, but we do find the monkey. And we do find ourselves with priority going into this final turn. I would love a turn 7 here. No Limbo in the deck. And I was going to say this in the previous game too. No Misty Knight. Misty Knight is the main card that we are neglecting to play. Now, Fenris Wolf and my opponent tossing priority does kind of make me feel like a Killmonger could be coming. So what could we possibly do around a Killmonger? This is 11. This is 11 for my opponent. This is 10. They would kill their Quicksilver. This actually continues to win. That continues to be interesting. Actually, it's just better to play Omniversal Presence and put more power on Merlin rather than put more power on my other cards. And then I'll play Hitmonkey here, battle for all 3 locations. We beat Killmonger here, and that could just be the important thing, and then we beat Killmonger here. So let's see if this is enough. My opponent plays 1 card center. That's potentially a Cannonball, though that's not going to leave them with much room to play anything else. So they could play a Killmonger. Oh my gosh. We are going to get another turn this game, and I just made a huge Hitmonkey. Not my intention at all, but sure. Let's see what my opponent goes for here. Shang-Chi center, but I did not pump. And then a basic arrow, which they're actually going to be able to trigger. They're going to fill up cloning vats, and then we get another turn. Sure, okay. This would have been a cosmic victory. My opponent's just going to retreat here, though. That was a really wacky showcase. What if they draw Killmonger now off the top? I mean, I'm less inclined to believe that they have it with the Hawkeye Kate Bishop arrows. But, oh geez, do I have to play around Killmonger here still? Oh gosh. So... does this play around Killmonger? Yes. Okay. Whew, we got there. If they're staying in it, they have Killmonger. Crazy if they're staying in it. This was a fun one to end the video off with. Still did not draw Clea. I drew every card in my deck except for Clea. What is that? And yeah, the hood still in my deck. I literally drew every card except for Clea with the Nico Minoru +2 draw and the extra turn from Limbo. So that is a little unfortunate, but we did make some fun stuff happen in both of these games, I think. Am I going to wind up playing one more? I don't know. This feels like such a satisfying way to end the video, and I don't want to push my luck. I've got 9 wins in a row with this deck. Will my opponent come up with anything interesting here? We are playing around Cannonball still. We are playing around Killmonger still. I don't think they can come up with anything. We have Prio. It could be a Shadow King over in Starlight Citadel. It is a nothing. It is a celebration of, like, they're just letting me have a victory lap here. So I appreciate it. They think my deck is cool. And why did the werewolf not move? Oh, because I played it in a Mercury location. Sure. Okay. Slight miscalculation. Still got the win. We're going to do it. We're going to be bad and play one more game and try to get a cool Clea play in this Clea video with this Clea deck. I think that that's pretty reasonable. No 1-cost card. There's 4 1-cost cards in the deck, so to not hit one of them is a bummer, but we do eventually find that Clea, and you know what? It is just in time because we will be able to play Marvel Boy next turn. Werewolf by Night means that we will be able to get into Luke's bar. You know what? I'm going to protect the streak. Let's snap. We're either going big or we're going home here. I could... Actually, is a slightly different curve I could play. I could play a Merlin here. Next turn, I could play Werewolf by Night. Turn after that, I could play Marvel Boy Clea, and then really start moving and ripping and raving. Let's go for that. if we draw the hood next turn, I don't think that that changes anything. Ooh, White Hot Room. That's actually pretty big. Let's go Werewolf. Omniversal Presence is nice for Luke's as well. We're just going to go Marvel Boy Clea. We have the Kahori Grandmaster, which is also insane. Yeah, we are doing some cool stuff. Oh, we can actually Kahori Grandmaster both on turn 5 because we'll have the extra energy from White Hot Room. My opponent's also going to get the extra White Hot Room energy. I don't mind that Merlin's gone. We got enough value out of it with the Omniversal Presence, moving the Wolf, and honestly just soaking up the Red Guardian actually just feels like enough value in itself. So that seems good to me. We will both share the glory of the White Hot Room this turn, and next turn I can go Kahori Presence Grandmaster. This will take out Luke's Bar. We could also just Kahori into Luke's Bar. We could go Kahori Hit Monkey all into Luke's, which is kind of wild, but also kind of awesome. My opponent going to Copycat Nico into a Demon, getting rid of their Electra. And we could just go like Hope, Flames, Kahori. How does that lose? You know, I think this is actually slightly better to go Kahori, Hope, Flames. It does leave the Werewolf in Hollow, which I don't love. Yeah, you know what? I don't love that. I'm going to go this. So the downside to this play is Kahori can now pump up Hope Summers. So there is slightly worse odds of Kahori hitting Clea, right? But this is still pretty good. I could have also just played Kahori, Flames, Hit Monkey. Maybe that was actually my best play. Yeah, that might have been my best play. But I like getting the extra energy using the Hope Summers. It's a cool interaction. And what do we get out of this one? We do get another copy of Flames. That is just beautiful, baby. And we'll get one more at the end of turn. And now going into the final turn, we will have 10 energy, which will give us more than enough to play all of these Flames and all of this other stuff. We can get the Werewolf to land in the White Hot Room to finish off the turn. We can also Grandmaster something into Luke's Bar, potentially like the Kahori into Luke's Bar. Could actually be a pretty nice move here. And then I mean, how much energy do we have? I'm trying to get the Werewolf to move around more and then also end on Hit Monkey. But that seems tough. Okay, well I can't play all of these Flames anyways. Grandmaster Kahori just seems like the most efficient play possible. Maybe we go Flames. No, we go Kahori, Flames, Grandmaster, Hit Monkey. This is beautiful. They did change the Luke's Bar in some capacity here. We'll see what that is all about. Yeah, Flames just pumps up the Werewolf, but that's fine. Grandmaster moves over the Kahori, which is probably got to be enough for Luke's. Werewolf jumps back over into Hala. I think we're battling for this reasonably enough, and then a huge Hit Monkey. They have to Shang-Chi me in both locations here. Oh, Mysterio. I was wondering how they played so many cards. So this is a Mysterio plus a Hit Monkey, an Enchantress, and then this has to be like Scarlet Woman. Now Gwenpool getting returned to hand. GG. We remain undefeated, and we get a cool Clea clip to cap off the video. That is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys very much for watching. Legitimately 10-0 with this deck. And if you want to earn a PAX bundle, here's what you can do. So here's how I'd like to do my giveaway for PAX bundles. I've got 6 of them, courtesy of Second Dinner, to give away, and I've done similar contests like this before where you can comment on my videos and enter for a chance to win. And I'm going to do the same thing this time. Every time you comment on one of my videos, limit once per video, but you can comment on every single one of my videos this season, and that will give you another entry. So if I upload 50 videos this season, you could enter up to 50 times. I'm not going to do any type of like code word or anything like that. It would make it a little bit easier on me, but I want anyone that comments anything to be eligible to win, even the people that have already commented on my videos the past 2 weeks for this season. And you can still go back and comment on those old videos if you want a chance to win, but here is what I am requiring. You to join my Discord. The link is in the video description. That is just going to be so much easier for me to give the winners their codes. Sometimes people win and I respond to their comments and I tell them to email me, and like spam filters pick that up, or people just don't receive the notifications on YouTube. So it will be a lot easier for me if you join my Discord. That is not the purpose of it. I do not care if people join my Discord. It is just going to make it easier for me to tell you if you have won this giveaway. So leave a comment on any of my videos and join my Discord so I can tell you if you've won something.